Pacific Cities and Nature Briefing. We will be recording and just waiting for a few more minutes as everyone slowly joins us. Maybe another 120 seconds to just have folks come in and we'll get started. In the meantime, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, unmute and speak. Yeah. It's good to have many of you here, some new faces, some old faces. We have been doing this for quite a while now, and we have built a network of, we've had presentations from all over the world, from things as large scale as like thousands of acres of mangrove restoration in Pakistan to river restoration done by a small community of students in Japan, led by a professor. We've had folks from India give talks about some of their interesting work. And today we have Annemie, who will be speaking about a really interesting topic, something that's very hot in the media and has been spoken about for quite a while. So with that, allow me to get started. We'll definitely have more people come in and let me just take the lead on this. So again, formally, welcome to the Asia Pacific Cities and Nature Briefing hosted by the Urban Biodiversity Hub. My name is Meherwan. I am a young professional that works with the Urban Biodiversity Hub. My background is in environmental sciences and philosophy. I work at NTU in Singapore. We also have Mika here with us, who is co-founder and East and Southeast Asia lead of Hub. Mika will only be joining us on audio or text today. Anushree is another South Asia lead for Hub, but she is on maternity leave. So we're really, really excited for her to join us when she's well and back up to it. She's doing well, but we've just given her some time to relax. We have Pratibha, Evangeline, Chandan and Everiste, who are also part of the Asia Pacific team. But if you'd like, or if you know anyone who would be a good fit, we are looking forward to have them reach out and join the team as well. A little bit about what we have in store for you today. A quick welcome. Welcome. Lovely to have all of you here. We'll walk you through some global updates. We'll take a quick group photo. And then we are really, really excited to have Annemie from Macquarie University present on the Natura Global Roadmap for Nature-Based Solutions with a spotlight on Oceania. After that, I will hand it over to Evangeline, who will be hosting us for an open discussion, as well as any questions that you may have as professionals, as people in the audience who are kind of always co-creating this wonderful space with us. There's a few attendee announcements, and if you have any announcements of your end, please feel free to walk us through them, and then we will go on to sharing more about the next briefing. So bear with me as I give you a quick kind of flash of global updates. One of the major ones that we've had in a while, for a while, is the Nature of Cities Festival. It was due in 2026, now planned in 2027 in Cali, in Colombia. And we are very much looking forward to working with them, as well as kind of learning about the things that they will be sharing. If you're interested to attend, please do check it out. On a similar thread, we have the World Urban Forum that is going to be happening as we speak in a few days. There will be kind of ways to connect virtually as well as kind of outputs that will be on LinkedIn and other media. So it is not 57 days left. It's 5 to 7 days left for the forum now. And it will just be happening in Baku. We also have a conference called the Global Tipping Points Conference, this 2026 in October. And it is the abstract and workshop submissions are open. So if you are doing work on global tipping points, I know that some of you might be, please do submit an abstract for this if it interests you. On more of the learning and digital learning journeys, we have ICLEI that is in collaboration with the Secretariat and Regions 4, organized a set of 4 webinars. One, unfortunately, has already passed, but we have 2 upcoming webinars in July and September that will talk about localizing biodiversity action under the Convention for Biological Diversity, as well as shaping local and subnational governments' agenda for COP17. So if you are working in the space of cities, which many of you are, definitely worth attending to learn more about how ICLEI and the CBD are working towards localizing biodiversity action. A quick run through of some of the upcoming events. You know about the World Urban Forum. We also have the World Biodiversity Forum, its 4th edition, happening this June in Davos. And the theme is leading transformation together. Some of our folks from NTU, including Professor Perrine Hamel, who I'm working with, will be there, and some of our team. So do stay looped on that. I know that there are ways, again, to work and engage with them digitally. We also have the CardiMed Conference of Bringing Urban Rivers Back to Life, chaired by our friend Eric, who you mentioned, Annemie. Annemie is kind of leading parts of this conference, and he's the one who kind of shared it with us as well. Abstracts were due a few weeks ago, but yeah, the conference is happening this September. We also have COP, the 17th COP, that will be happening in Armenia this year, later in October, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We have the World Green Infrastructure Congress in Barcelona in October, the NBS International Conference in Paris this November, as well as a few other events, including the AIPH. I'll send this detail directly to you because it just came to mind, but AIPH is hosting a conference in collaboration with landscape architects somewhere in East Asia. And I'll send that across in the email. Just a reminder that IUCN still has the renewal process of their memberships open, and it will be open until the end of May. So please make sure that if you are working with IUCN or you would like to get more engaged with IUCN, please do send in these applications. A few more interesting things happening this summer. We have the Hong Kong NBS Week from the 1st to the 5th, organized by IUCN, the Nature Conservancy, and supported by various institutional and nonprofit partners. The theme for this year will be From Policy to Projects, advancing NBS across the region, especially in densely built cities and their surrounding natural landscapes. A lot of us know about how Hong Kong is one of those places that is so dense, but also makes space for nature. And I guess it's interesting to have it in a place like Hong Kong. Of course, all of these slides will be shared with you. So don't worry about screenshotting or kind of like, noting everything down. I see a thumbs up from Judy. This is something that I find really interesting and I came across recently. It was recently published, although it has the deadline for some of the cataloging was in end of 2025. It is the nature-based solution publication for ASEAN. It's basically a technical assistance set of reports for clean energy developments across the region, from climate risks and hazard analyses to solution characteristics and typologies, as well as a catalog of NBS practices in the ASEAN region. So I think if you're looking for a very different set and a very different range within the region as well, you will see from formal NBS projects in Singapore, such as Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park, to more informal community-based projects in the region. I think that should be really interesting. Yeah, that's really it for some of our global updates, at least the ones that we have presented for you today. I think this will be a good time to kind of take a grounding breath and reorient for a group photo, after which we will have Annemie present. So with your permission, please have your cameras on, give us your brightest smile, and we will take a quick group photo. If you would not like to be part of the photo, just drop me a text and we will make sure that we kind of, edit you out. But hopefully you would like to be part of it. And maybe in 15 seconds from now, we'll have everyone's videos on, and then we can take a group photo. And for almost the first time in the history of these briefings that we have, we are running on time. So I'm really excited about that. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Your brightest smile, please. 3 seconds more. Give me a big smile. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, awesome. We have the photo here. I will continue presenting. Good to see you, Mika. So with that, Annemie, over to you. Annemie will be speaking to us about the Natura Global Roadmap for Nature-Based Solutions in Oceania. And yeah, we will also be hosting a Miro board discussion space. So I would say hold some of your questions, any questions that you have for Annemie, any kind of observations that you have, please either we'll send the Miro board link in the chat, but please hold them so that we can discuss them in detail during the Miro board. And we'll also be taking some notes as you present. Annemie, I'll stop sharing now and hand it over to you. And of course, please do introduce yourself so we know the experts that we are speaking to.
What an honor. Can you all hear me and see my screen? Okay, perfect. Well, hello, I'm Annemie Rose Janssen. I'm at the very end of my PhD, with just a few weeks left. And I'm currently based at Macquarie University, looking at how urbanization is effectively driving evolution underwater. So although I'm an ecologist by nature, I work at the interface of urbanization and ecology. And I was lucky enough to get involved in the Natura Global Roadmap of urban nature-based solutions. And this is a big, big project. As you can see, there's 8 reports. Not all of them are published, but I will talk today mostly about the Oceania region and the results we've got from our efforts there. But maybe I'll give you a bit more background about what Natura is. Let me try and change my slide. Natura is, and the global roadmap is. It is not changing. Let me try here. There we go. Okay, so the global roadmap is a project that started about almost 4 years ago in 2022, and they launched at COP15 in Montreal. And it's this idea that with the ecological, environmental threats that are happening globally, there needs to be some transformation into how societies live. And that's where urban nature-based solutions came into place. And so they started this big process led by New York University, by the Urban Systems Lab, to try and compile the evidence in the literature and in the practice, so looking at grey literature, to try and build regional profile about what is known about NBS. So the global roadmap is, I think, only the executive summary is published, if I'm not mistaken, at this stage, but it's very close to being published, or it has just been published. But I've been so busy on the Oceania report that I haven't been able to look. But yeah, the global roadmap was compiled by comparing similarities and dissimilarities between regions and try and come up with knowledge gaps at the global level and provide recommendations to leverage NBS, leverage learning from NBS implementation within regions and across regions. So altogether, we were over 80 experts, and there was over 1,200 scientific papers that were analyzed at the global level in a literature review exercise. And then at the regional level, when we combine all regions' effort, we have over 150 case studies that were analyzed. So today, I'm going to talk about the findings that we have in the Oceania region. I was lucky enough not to do this by myself because going through literature on urban NBS in Oceania is already quite large. It's quite a diverse place. We've got Australia, New Zealand, and a whole load of Pacific Islands to go through. That's a lot of literature, a lot of projects, and hard. Um, hard to access these kinds of reports and knowledge sometimes. So I'm happy to see one of my co-authors in the audience. Judy Bush is here from the University of Melbourne. So we were a core team of 5 people trying to get this forward, but without our contributing authors and their expertise, we would not have been able to come up with this global report. So let me take you through the key messages and the key findings that we had for the region. Well, probably first I should tell you why it's very important to have urban NBS in Oceania. So urbanization across the region is quite unique. It's still growing in some places, it's established in others, but the thing we have in common is that they lie at where heat, water, and let's say climate hazards are extreme risks. And to top that, we have high levels of endemism and quite some quite a number of threatened species. So, in order to adapt to climate and mitigate these threats, urban nature-based solutions are very important in the region. Um, but it's not always easy to understand what is known and what is being done and what needs to still be done. From looking at the literature and case studies, we've found well, let's come up with 6 key messages about trying to summarize our results. One key thing that made it quite hard for us to um, find evidence is that in general, across the region, there's no real uptake or integration of the semantics around NBS. Although the practice of NBS is well developed, people are making and are undertaking NBS projects, but they don't use NBS language. They use associated language that fall under that umbrella. So one of the most common terms was ecosystem services. We had a lot of project related to urban forests and water sensitive urban design. Um, but it was really, really hard to try and find some understanding of and draw conclusions when everything like terminologically is very fragmented. And one of the, let's say, key recommendation to try and address that is try and come up with, well, try and better understand the benefits, especially to endemic biodiversity, but also develop some common indicators and understanding so people can share knowledge and we could probably innovate regionally in a much better way if we have a common understanding of things going on. But also, we don't want to generalize too much either, because we do not want to lose the local ecological knowledge, knowledge as well. So it's a fine balance between trying to standardize, to try and incentivize uptake and more understanding of urban NBS, but also making sure that projects remain evidence-based, place-based, and are culturally and ecologically relevant. One of the things that we found is that most projects are actually at the site level. They're almost demonstration sites. They're very small scale, usually look at a single ecosystem. Well, when I say usually, I should say all of them, maybe one exception across the whole region or two. And so that siloed um, approach to NBS limits, again, the learning, and it limits the upscaling of these projects. What we recommend is not only trying to move away from siloed and single ecosystem project towards something that's more integrated, maybe different scales, whether these are ecological scales, ecosystem scales, but also governance scales. Trying to do an NBS project between different ecosystems is quite hard when you look at governance and different jurisdictions. Um, so there needs to be an integration of ecosystem, but that cannot be achieved without an integration at the governance level. Um, Number three, what we found is actually quite interesting and a bit alarming as well, is that most urban NBS are driven by government actors in the region. We've got emerging partnerships with some local communities or indigenous groups, but we found that a lot of the financing mechanism is external, especially in the Pacific Islands. For example, here on the left, you can see a picture of the RISE project, which is a fantastic project where they rehabilitate uh, all kinds of wetlands for coastal protection. But most of it is funded externally by, let's say, the French agencies, Australian agencies, European Commission. And that raises flags in terms of whose narrative is being followed. Are the benefits that from that project the benefits that are thought for the community, or is that just external funders pushing their own agendas? So we recommend fostering decolonization pathways, and we could do that by diversifying funding and support self-determination to make sure that um, local communities are involved at all stage of NBS planning and implementation and monitoring. Um, so yeah, try and diversify actors and make sure that NBS projects are aligned with the place, but also with the people. Um, then again, let me go back to fragmented policy frameworks. I was talking about trying to um, come up with a united governance approach. One of the things we said, as I said, was that most of the project was site specific, and one barrier to try and upscale that to cross ecosystem and cross jurisdictional coordination is that there's no, well, as in Australia, there's most of the projects are city-based, whereas in New Zealand they are more, they could be state-based. Pacific Islands are usually nationally or internationally governed. And that has a big effect on how to upscale a project. For example, this beautiful underwater seawall that you can see is a project that's trying to bring back nature to the ocean underwater by providing substrate for mussels and sponges to grow. Um, and this was a very difficult one to implement. You can see that it's placed where city meets ocean. Ocean and terrestrial environments are governed by different institutions. Um, and sometimes that is not very easy to implement because you've got ecological boundaries, you've got political boundaries, you've got vertical challenges. People don't talk to each other from the local council versus the national council. So you've got vertical challenges. You've also got horizontal challenges, is what we call them, which is if a project needs to occur ecologically in a space where two neighboring councils collide, it's very hard to coordinate with both of them and come to an agreement, especially when it comes to, let's say, restoring threatened species. Um, there is a funny story in Sydney where they were trying to restore a threatened species in one council, but there was problems because it would devalue the value of the land for housing. So the people that were pushing to bring environment were also the ones that were blocking it. So, and then in our region, which is something that is quite unique, is that we have a third layer. We've got ecological, let's say, relevance. Then we've got a layer of barriers coming across with jurisdiction and governance, but we also have cultural boundaries, and they don't always match with the jurisdictional boundaries, which is an extra layer, and we really, really have to ensure policies and that projects reflect the ecological connectivity, but also include and integrate cultural group needs to make sure that NBS bring benefits in a just way. So yeah, that was one quite of a big key message and key finding of our report. The fifth one is linked to the cultural boundaries. The way things are at the moment, with government actors being, let's say, the driving actors of urban NBS, there is some recognition of traditional ecological knowledge and Indigenous knowledge, but it's still very limited. And that raises flags again, to make in terms of, okay, we're doing this project somewhere in an urban city, but who does that project really benefit? We need to make sure that projects are developed and planned inclusively at all stages. So in the planning stage, in the implementation stage, in the monitoring stage, we need to make sure to have this community-led um, inclusion to make sure that there's an equitable distribution of NBS benefits and make sure that everything is locally grounded and that no one's, well, that global agendas don't override local agendas and local needs. All of this is obviously a problem that is sourced much deeper. In the region, and it's across all regions, there's limited monitoring and evaluation of the projects. It was actually really, really hard to find reports sometimes. There was a lot of databases that said projects were occurring in the Pacific Islands, but finding reports and results and knowing if they were successful or if there were trade-offs was very, very hard to find. So then there's a need to strengthen capacity for monitoring and evaluating all these kinds of reporting. But there's also a need to fund these, and that will allow people to access this information and to share knowledge between institutions, between different regions, and that will obviously facilitate scaling across different ecosystems and learning. So yeah, those are the big findings from Oceania. Um, this is still, unfortunately, not a fully published report. The content is finalized, but the full report is still in a design stage. If you want to read more about the executive summary, that is already published on the Natura website. You can access it through the QR code here. It will tell you all our findings in more detail than what I've been able to provide here. And then if you want to read more about Natura and the other roadmaps, I strongly encourage you to visit the Global Roadmap website, which is nbsroadmap.org. and you'll find fantastic reports. I think the Europe report, the Asia report are all fully published, and then you can access the few executive summaries. If you want more about the Oceania report, it should be published in the coming days, hopefully not weeks. Everything's finalized. But yeah, stay in touch and I will disseminate more as soon as I can. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Annemie. I feel like, yeah, we should give you a round of applause. I mean, you walked us through it so well, and also fascinating insights. Really, like Oceania seems like a region that um, is so unlike some of the other places in the world in the way that they're doing NBS, and I'm feeling sad because I will have to miss out on some parts of the discussion section. But we'll be handing it over to Evangeline now to take us through that. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate it, and looking forward for everyone to be able to, even those who are joining us later on through the recording, to kind of take these insights with them. Thanks, Annemie. Over to you, Evangeline.
Bye, everyone. So thanks, Annemie, for this amazing presentation. It actually opened our eyes into what actually Oceania does about nature-based solutions. So it was really very informative. And we'll be moving on to the Miro board for the Q&A discussion space. So if anybody is having any questions for Annemie to answer, you can go ahead. Are there any questions?
I'm happy to speak. I've got more things to say just because, it was interesting. You said it, and I said it. Oceania is such a diverse place in terms of how what urbanization looks. We actually spent, I think, close to 3 months deciding what urban means for us. Um, it's very different what urban means in Australia versus in the Pacific Islands versus um, in New Zealand, and even within Australia, there's so many different levels of what urbanization mean. You've got these mega cities, but then you've got what they call regional cities, um, which is really, really interesting. And I don't know if if you noticed, but our team was mainly based in Australia. So that is one thing we really have to acknowledge, and it'll be part of our report, but we have to make sure that people know that this is a report mainly written by Australian researchers, because we tried reaching out to New Zealand, well, we call them Kiwi researchers from New Zealand and Pacific Islands. We tried to reach out to IUCN, but that in itself was really hard to get meaningful engagement, um, because they are already so swamped. They have so much to do, and it was really hard to find their time. We had them review, but we didn't have full engagement from people outside of Australia. And that in itself might shape our findings. And then another layer on top of that is that the whole global roadmap is led by New York University, and that creates already a layer of complication for Oceania because some of the definitions did not match for this region. So it was always a push and pull exercise between the global team, the regional team, and then the experts. We had so many debates on definitions, on framing, on how some of the words couldn't match. So doing this kind of exercise was really eye-opening as a early career researcher to see all the layers of complexity. So I'm really keen to share all the fantastic case studies that we've come up, and get some feedback and maybe people reaching out. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. I thought it was interesting and important to let you know who the team was made up of, before I can respond more about questions.
Hi there, Mika here. I have a question in the
Hello.
chat box. My daughter just woke up, so I don't think I
Ah.
can talk much.
Yeah, that in itself, nature-based solutions, is an interesting word. So I'm fortunate enough, as part of my work, I work sometimes with a group of Indigenous rangers doing some seagrass restoration. Um, it's hard to push on such a westernized word. Um, urban nature-based solutions takes out it just seems very yeah, just westernized world, and you can't push your agenda. Um, I have no idea. I've never talked to them about the actual um semantics of the word, but I can imagine that framing nature as a solution is just inherently very anthropogenic. And I was going to say something else. I lost my train of thoughts. Um, yeah, they say caring for country here, and we use it more than solution. But it's interesting. Yeah, that's I've got my train of thought back. It's interesting in the Pacific Islands. I forgot to mention that, but one of our key findings is that the terminology was not taken up. Um, right? But in the Pacific Islands, interestingly, nature-based solutions was really a common term. They were very familiar with the term, and I think, and we think as part of the team, that that is driven by the funding mechanism. So the uptake and the agenda and the terminology has been pushed by the funders. And so, of course, to get funding, you use the funders' language. So the uptake of the terminology was very uneven across the region. We had Pacific Islands that were very, very familiar and use the term nature-based solutions so much more than here. And indeed, Judy, here, the Indigenous communities, they usually say more caring for country, more than solution. Yeah. Thank you, Judy. Reading the question. Well, this is our recommendation number one is fostering decolonization pathways. Um, it is um, it is emerging. I'm not going to say it's absent in the project. There are there's a push now to to include Indigenous and, let's say, more traditional ecological knowledge and stakeholders in most projects. Um, there is fear, though, that it's done as a tokenistic invitation to say, tick box, I've invited someone, not really meaningfully include them or realize that you forgot to include them and do it last minute. Um, there is a whole section in the report about this and a recommendation about what we think should be done, and that is including not even just Indigenous knowledge, but just diverse knowledges, including the community knowledge. And I think that is a rise, maybe not in nature-based solutions, but I know it's a rise in my field that in my team anyways, we usually don't do restoration without consultation. So there's a rise of it, but it still seems like an afterthought at this stage. You can absolutely correct me if I'm wrong, Judy. But there's a whole section on that. Yes, Everest. I cannot hear you, Evangeline. You're muted.
Yeah, can you hear me now, Anime?
Yeah.
So, like, personally, I have a question. So, when I looked into all of your 6 key messages, I found out that somewhere governance was linked to each and every key messages. Say, for example, you take up most projects are small scale, looking up a single ecosystem. I think it is the role of the government to take up a project where it takes up all the other aspects as well, rather than taking up a single ecosystem. So how do you look on it? Like, so if you are taking up a lot of large scale projects, I think a lot of organized governmental organizations are supposed to be involved. So if it's decentralizing, there'll be a lot of government offices involved, and I think that's somewhere, it fragments everything. Like, so one organization takes up one single work, the other one takes up the other single work. So how do you find the link or the connection between different organizations?
You cut off. I didn't hear your questions about decentralizing.
Yeah, exactly. How do you decentralize it at the same time maintain the continuity of all the projects?
It just takes time. You need to foster your partnership. So for over years and years and years, I know that the partnership with the Gamay Rangers has been going on for years. But it's not something, it takes trust to do that meaningfully. And trust is not built over one project where you invited them and that's it. So I think there needs to be long-term funding for these partnership and not do some kind of parachute project where you come up with your knowledge and then you leave and then you have no idea what happens. So yeah, parachute science, parachute projects are not the way to go. You need to really foster long-term trusting relationships to be able to do meaningful work. And that is not only meaningful ecologically, but culturally and culturally and with society,
Thanks, Anime, for answering all these questions. Is there any other question in the space, or shall we move to the next section? I think we can go to the attendee announcements, Anime. So right now we have an attendee announcement from Meherwan. Like, so he's looking for a call for co-authors. So for it, I think it's for a paper. So if there are any other attendee announcements in the audience, please feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat box so that everybody benefits out of it. And we are having our next briefing. And guys for actually having a good time with Anime, for hosting for having this wonderful. Thank you so much, buddy. Everybody, can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any attendee announcements, as in, like, does anybody want a call
Yes.
for?
May I?
Yeah, please, ma'am.
Yeah, I would just. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I
Can you
can.
hear me? I am Minakshi Dhote. I am a professor at the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. We are organizing a conference on urban biodiversity and ecosystem services on the 22nd of May. And the main focus would be to bring together people in India who have been working and contributing towards conservation of urban biodiversity. Can I just share a image of the invite? I'll mail it over also. Just a moment. I'll just do that. 1 second, I'll have to do it again.
Maybe while we wait, Evangeline, is there anywhere I can send the final report when it's disseminated?
Yeah, please. And we are actually waiting for it.
I know.
It
Me
was
too.
really, I loved your presentation a lot. It was really, it was heart touching. I loved it.
I thank you,
Yeah,
Meenakshi.
ma'am.
Can you put it up again?
Yeah, like it just went off.
Perfect. I can see.
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
you see it now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is, I'm currently finalizing the sessions. We would be having a presentation of the Yamuna Biodiversity Park, a biodiversity park that has been made by restoring a degraded ecosystem in the floodplains of the river in Delhi, the river Yamuna in Delhi. So this project has been on from 2002, where the area was just saline floodplains, and today you have a forest there with mammals. So there will be a presentation by the scientists from that park. There would be a presentation from the ICLAI, New Delhi, on cities in India where they have prepared CBI and LBSAP, and also we would be looking. People would be presenting on the plantations they are doing along roads and all. And as an academic institution, we also feel we have we also that we need to interact with the planners of cities so that they can incorporate these in their planning and development proposal. Very recently in India, the Ministry of Urban Development has recognized blue green infrastructure as one of the major components for resilience. And we want now to use this conference to bring together inputs so that what would be the kind of blue green infrastructure which would also contribute towards conservation of the urban biodiversity. So I just wanted to make this short announcement, and I'll be mailing over other details of the conference and hope to get back with the outcomes too with this group. I found the presentations earlier very fascinating. I've been attending. We have islands in India, and I found this presentation on Oceania very similar to the problems we are facing. And since they are also strategically important, we have a lot of defense presence. So we need to sensitize the defense people also to protect the biodiversity. So thank you so much. And I do hope we will be having, I'll share the link of the conference. So if anybody from the hub would like to participate, I would love that. So depending on the timing, so that's why we kept it whole day, because I have a presentation from Paris. So if somebody from the hub could join, do let me know. Yeah, thank you.
It was like I could relate with you so much, ma'am, because I am also from India, and I was so
Yeah, please look forward, madam.
just now, like yeah, hello, like yeah.
Yeah, would love
So,
if
and
you could
ma'am, I've
join.
also secured. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
And ma'am, I would definitely,
I
I should tell you this. I am joining in SPA Vijayawada in
oh,
2026 for
that's great
transportation
news.
planning.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
really good news. But I'd expect you to now join this conference on the 22nd now. Yeah? No, so nice to
sure.
know.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah. Okay.
thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you everybody. And if there's again any attendee announcements, we would love to hear, or you can feel free to put them in the chat box. And we are having our next briefing on July 29th, and we'll be mailing you that as well. And it is, and when we are sending you the newsletter for this, the registration link for 29th will also be there on the newsletter. So thank you everybody. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much again, Anime, for this amazing presentation. It was really fascinating and mind-blowing.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, bye everybody.